Let's see. Our next question is from Marc on Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Hi, Robb and Nicki. I've been a listener and reader since the very first Paleo Solution podcast and truly appreciate all the info you have graciously shared over the years. Forgive me if you've addressed this previously, but I just started BJJ class and I wanted your advice, tips, and whatever else you could offer a true beginner. Not asking specifics on training or volume, just maybe some things you wish you knew when you were starting. You always have an interesting and informative take on anything you practice. Thanks, Marc.
Do you want to tackle this? Because you're motoring towards your blue belt. You've been doing this for 2 years.
I guess the number one thing that I would say, and so if you're a female, like the thing that worked for me, because obviously the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for many people, probably not everybody, but for many, especially women, it can be pretty intimidating to think about going into a regular class when you, just like CrossFit, like we got this all the time. There's all these movements that you don't know. In Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, there's multiple positions. You don't know the names of them. It's like a whole new language.
So there's all that. There's a little bit of a burly feel to it.
There's a burly feel to it. And if you've not done martial arts before, like you're looking at people, there's a proximity to other persons that is a very intimidating
and it's very
thing
different
as
than like Taekwondo. It's like you're doing kata and you're kicking pads. Like it's a female, and again, we're not dealing with female here, but for everybody, you're potentially stuffing someone between your legs and holding onto them with your crotch, basically.
Yeah, there's lots of positions that you're closer to people than you would ever be in a normal, situation. So, so I guess the number one thing that I would say is find a school, if at all possible, that has a beginner program, and just like CrossFit, because again, I feel like it helps with confidence. Like for me, when I started in a women's class. I mean, I did some training with Robb in the very beginning, but then I went to a women's class because as a woman, it was easier to wrap my head around that. And I wanted to get a foundation. So I went exclusively to women's classes for the first probably month. And then I started going to the regular class, and Robb was my primary partner in the beginning. And I guess another thing to say too, when you're starting, they have this saying in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that like white belts are spastic, and we are, especially in the very beginning.
We were at a seminar, and we were literally 3 minutes into the beginning of the seminar, and Nicki like thumbed me in the eye. Like I thought she had gouged my eyeball.
On purpose,
not on purpose.
But again, like when you're brand new to the sport, you don't know how to move your body in the right ways, and there's lots going on, and there's also this, it's. Jiu-Jitsu is supposed to be, or is designed to be, a sport where regardless of your size, you can do it, even if like a small female is with a very large guy. But in the beginning, when you're just learning this and you don't know the positions and the movements, you want to use your strength. That's like the natural instinct that comes out. So you are using more strength than you should be using. And so then things, arms flop out and you can accidentally hit people and whatnot. So anyway, Robb, knowing this, was pretty careful to not have me roll with a lot of male white belts, just because of the size difference and just a higher chance of getting injured. And obviously, if you get injured, the lack of being able to train consistently and progress goes out the window. So try to relax. Like it's not a wrestling match. You're not there to win anything. It's okay if people, you should be tapping all the time anyway. And hopefully you're not in a spot where you're doing a lot of submission. People aren't trying to submit you all the time. It should be drilling based, ideally in a good school where you're doing lots and lots of drilling. And maybe in the beginning, white belts don't even roll live for a while.
Straight Blast Gym has a curriculum developed by Travis up in Montana where folks, and what's interesting and kind of gratifying about this, it looks a lot like the on-ramp program that you developed for our CrossFit classes, where there's a really thoughtful approach to give people some time to work harden and kind of work through like the emotional intimidation of doing this whole thing. So it's cool that there's some parallel there. And the folks that run Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu classes that don't have a foundations or a beginners program, and it's really well thought out, and they're curious why they're barely have enough people to like keep the lights on, that is why. Like you need to make this thing amenable to beginners.
I mean, we just had some friends visiting from Reno, and he's a 3-stripe brown belt, and he was sharing that another student that we used to roll with in Reno, who is a blue belt, was having some claustrophobia issues in Mount Bottom. And so like even and he's great. Like he's been training for 2-3 years, and he's a great athlete. He's great at jiu-jitsu. But so there you get into positions where there is this not just intimidation factor, but you're like, holy shit, can I breathe? Am I okay? Like there, and this is all part of the stuff that you work through. So long story short, like ideally find a great school that focuses on foundations and has a beginner program. Choose your training partners wisely. And what else, babe? What would you throw in there?
So maybe that's all amazing
Relax,
stuff.
be mellow. It's not like tap all the time. You're not there to prove anything. Like your first couple of years, all you're there to do is learn. So, okay, gosh, they got me in that. How can I, what happened there? How can I do something differently so I don't get in that position again, or they don't submit me that way again? So think of it as like it's a learning experience.
Right. And so one of our coaches, Ray Price in Reno, he breaks this down that the job of the white belt is to survive. That's it. You just survive. And then as you progress through, and it'll take 1 year to 2 years to get to your blue belt, depending on the way the curriculum flows and how much you can show up. The role of the blue belt is to escape. And this is where folks get so enamored with submission, with winning, that they will oftentimes neglect the fundamentals of survival and escape. And then they may be able to like dish out a little bit hurt on folks here and there, but they have a very incomplete game. Like really, once you learn how to escape, and I still get tapped, but I focused exclusively for 2 years on my escape. And it's pretty hard to put me away now. Like folks have to really work at it. And now though, I wouldn't say that I act with impunity, but I'm not that worried because I can get out of most things, and it's not getting out because I'm allowing my shoulder to be hyperextended or anything. I know what people are trying to do, and I intervene. The interesting thing is that attacks typically require multiple steps. It's rare that it's a one-step attack. Whereas for a defense, I only need to, let's say there's 3 steps to the attack. So long as I intervene in either step 1, step 2, or step 3, the person can't seal the deal on this. And so so long as I get in there and do that. And so a real emphasis on escapes in the beginning, and learn your submissions, pay attention to that, but get really geeked out about the escapes, because then people will have to work harder and it will make them spaz out, and then they make mistakes. And that's when, as you go from blue belt to purple belt, you start consolidating a game because you're able to dictate the terms instead of having it dictated to you. And then it progresses from there. But yeah, just to reiterate, a good school, drilling based. If you are near a Straight Blast Gym affiliate, would highly recommend that. There are other good schools out there. The folks that do the Gracie Combatives curriculum, very, very good. Like it's self-defense oriented. It's very well structured. You should see old people in there. You should see kids programs. There should be women in there.
If it's just a competition school, like if you're brand new, it might not be the best spot, because people are in there to typically prove themselves, and it's very competition focused. So, and that might be what you want to do. And if that's the case, then
that's cool though. But I would still recommend finding some place that focuses on the fundamentals. Straight Blast
is position before submission a Straight Blast Gym saying, or is
no,
that
it's
like
just
a general thing?
Saying? It's
a
very old Gracie family saying. Yeah. And could go on and on about this, but Marc, it's awesome that you're jumping into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I think it's one of the most wonderful things in the world, and it's similar to CrossFit. It's unfortunate that more folks don't tackle it as a we're homeschooling our girls, and I'm working on the math. Nicki's working on the phonics and reading and writing primarily, and you don't start with calculus. You have to start with what is a number? And you know, addition and then subtraction and then multiplication and division, and it layers and builds. And if folks tackled that physical movement side of martial arts in a more structured way, then it would be safer for people, it would be more enjoyable, it would be more profitable for the business owners. But I tell you what, it's hard as hell to get people to do that. But it also makes the case for finding schools that have some dedicated curriculum and have a real depth of bench with regards to their coaching staff and the offerings. Like if they have morning, noon, and night classes, pretty good bet it's a reasonably well-run program. If the only class they have is like 9 p.m. at night and it's a bunch of like Division I wrestlers in there with MMA dreams, that's going to be a tough place to progress well in.